Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the annual meeting of East River Housing Corporation. Our first co-operators moved into East River 66 years ago last month. So we're happy that all of those who joined us tonight. And the first item of business on the agenda, which was distributed today, would be the acceptance of the agenda. And I would make a motion. Is it so moved?
So moved.
Thank you. And then the adoption of the minutes as prepared by our corporation's attorney, Michael Riley, the adoption of the minutes of last year's annual meeting of December 20th, 2020. There a motion to accept? So moved. Okay. Thank you. I want to first welcome all co-operators to our annual meeting. For those co-operators who just finished celebrating Hanukkah, which ended about an hour and a half ago. Hope everyone had a wonderful holiday. And to those about to celebrate Christmas in 2.5, 3 weeks, everyone should have a very joyous and a Merry Christmas, and for everybody, a very happy, and let's say a healthier New Year for all. I don't know if we thought a year ago that at this point in stage, we'd still be battling the COVID epidemic, but it's pandemic. It's still here, and we wish the best for everybody. As far as we know here in the building, we do not have any COVID cases at this time or for a long time to come, and let's hope that we can keep it that way. One of the first things I like to do every year is to just have a moment of silence to remember some of the co-operators who have passed in the last year. Some due to age, some due to other factors, and always remember that we do live, our co-op is in the shadow of 9/11, and sometimes there are still effects going on from what happened 20 years ago. But I do want to note that we, earlier this year in March, we lost our former longtime president, Martin Pulver. Martin passed away. Martin was president for about 8-10 years, but Martin was a professor of chemistry at CUNY for scores of years. And he was a very, very caring person and a friend to so many, and he will be missed. His advice was greatly graciously given and gladly accepted for many years by many of us, and just a good soul has passed. And we also remember all our other co-operators and family members who have passed on. May their souls rest in peace. I think the first thing, the first item we're going to do is under the President's report. I do want to acknowledge my fellow board members and our staff. I am joined tonight and all the time by our Vice President, Ellen Gentiviso, our Secretary, Dov Goldman, our Treasurer, Michelle Amar, and by board members, Steve Barberi, Ruvain Bell, Rachel Ehrenpreis, Larry Goldman, Richie Kenny, John Sotomayor, and Diana Wang. And together they're a very, very dedicated group of co-operators elected by the co-operators who work their hardest and have the interest of our co-op and our community in their heart at all time. Remember, every decision that the board collectively makes affects every board member, just as it does every co-operator. And we work very hard to try and do the right thing for our community. Should mention our general manager, Shuli Wollman, who is also a vice president of the board of the corporation for non-voting, but for purposes of service collection. If someone has to serve us any papers ever, then Shuli would be the one. I also want to acknowledge on tonight and will speak soon is Jeff Super, the chair of our House Committee. And we're also joined by our longtime, from the beginning of time, attorneys at Norris McLaughlin tonight, Michael Riley, Pam Mushler, and our attorney emeritus, Ezra Goodman, who hosted our meetings for dozens of years. And joining in our management office, Shuli, is our controller, Saul Wennick, our assistant controller, Harry Packer, and our great dedicated office staff, Deneen Cassiano, who is always in that office with a smile to help every co-operator who needs everything. Our assistant controller, if I didn't mention Harry Packer, our receptionist, the indescribable Shifra White, who's just an institution in our office. Michael Wollman, our Elliot Kaplan, our assistant general manager, who is running and in charge of our Zoom meeting and stuff. And also Evelyn Perez and Femina Perez in our bookkeeping department. We have a small staff, but they do a lot of hard work keeping our corporation going. And also want to mention our chief engineer, Jimmy Ritchie, our director of maintenance, Bob Westcott, and our deputy director, Eddie Velasquez, who is just in many ways Mr. Know-It-All, knows how to fix so many things, created all our beautiful fencing from wrought iron, him and his crew, and does an amazing job, especially with snow. And I only mention that because I think there might be a dusting or so in a few days, not enough to have to clear, but we know that it'll come unless. And our director of our security supervisor, Cleveland, who many cooperators know as he roams the different buildings. To start off, I think I'd like to speak, of course, what's of interest to many people is our finances. We are no different than many other co-ops, many businesses. We have been hard hit by the COVID pandemic, hit in many ways. Our co-operators have been hurting. Commodities that we purchase are rising as fast. We can know if we're buying gas at a gas station, what it costs. We know what we see in the supermarket, whether it's for meat or other goods, everything is going up. And of course, that hits us. And when the pandemic first struck, the apartment sales here took a nosedive as all over the city. People were leaving rentals, people were moving back home. You know, the stories are all out there. People are now returning. Earlier this year, we renegotiated and increased our mortgage to $40 million. And we got an interest rate, as reported several times, of 2.875%. As part of that mortgage, we hold back $575,000 in a sort of reserve fund that the bank wants us to put on the side just in case of emergencies. They might say, hey, use your line of credit first, but basically it's money that is put to the side, and we gladly do that and have done that. Just in terms of our mortgage at $40 million, I just want cooperators to understand that if our buildings have a value of $1.2 billion, and our buildings are probably worth quite a bit more, our land, remember, and all the property we own and the blocks we own, that would only be a 3% debt that we have on our assets. But if our property is worth, which is more likely in the 1.5, 1.6, 1.7 billion, then we know that our debt is about 2.5%. And as I've said before, for someone to have a mortgage where all you owed is 2-3% left on your debt, it would be fantastic. And to put that in perspective, and with all due respect to other co-ops. Every co-op is different. Seward Park just announced that they renegotiated their mortgage. They gave a 10.9% increase last week. Understand, prices are going up. They have certain issues with no fault of their own with the way the structure was built, rebar in their balconies and other issues. But Seward's new mortgage is $115 million. Seward Park is approximately our size. They're a little bigger because on some floors they have 8 apartments versus 7, but approximately we're close to the same size. So for our $40 million mortgage, they have $115 million mortgage. So if you take that, there is a very, very big difference. So we have, and when we took down the mortgage this year, we took down that extra money because there were items that we just felt we should have gone back to the cooperators, but in good conscience, we couldn't. Some of that, sure, we'll talk about a little later, but we have the approximately 4.9 million minimum charge for the local law 11, which is a building facade law that you see all the scaffolding. This is not a one-time charge. This is a charge that'll happen again in 10 years, and in 2 years, there'll be another cycle and another cycle and another cycle. It's an ongoing program with the city for safety, but it's bankrupting other co-ops, small co-ops who just can't afford because the law has been changed with the scaffolding where you have to put up a smaller amount of scaffolding now because of a tragedy uptown. Scaffolding is required something like every 60 linear feet, up, down, sideways. And it's really become an incredible expense. We've also absorbed some of the other costs using our mortgage money. It can't be done always, but for now, and as we've said in the annual report, eventually large items, if it comes to pass, roofs, elevators, will have to be done as most co-ops do, probably through an assessment. We're just not going to have the money, and hopefully those get put off as long as possible. But we had other expenses this year, again, unknown at the time. Right now, across Grand Street, we have it's a $990,000, and believe me, Shirley negotiates these bids down very low as possible. The condensate line that goes across to buildings 1 and 2 needed to be replaced. If it wasn't replaced, it's been patched and worked on, but our chief engineer says it has to happen, or if something bad happened, there would not be heat and hot water available to buildings 1 and 2 for an extended period of time. We can't wait for something like that to happen. Our cooperators need to be protected. But while we're doing this major work, it should be noted that we are dropping other pipes down there. So if this ever happens again, and this one lasted 70 years approximately, if it ever happened again, we could just go near the guardhouses in the park, near the guardhouse on the building 3 side, and in the park right on the building 1-2 side. There are vaults right there. And we can now go straight down and run new pipes right through at no cost, no need to break up Grand Street. But if you've watched the work on Grand Street, you'll see that it's being done by hand. There are electrical lines nearby. We have to worry about the city. And remember, the buses 3 bus lines are coming right over and the cars. So you will see that the workers there are doing by hand so they don't hit any electrical or other lines. And it is hard work. But it's progressing nicely. And in fact, next week I believe it's Wednesday and Thursday, different days for each, in buildings 1 and 2, there's going to be a shutdown so that we can connect the piping to start moving to the latter stage of that. So that's another cost that right now we have absorbed. But earlier in the year, there was near the entrance to building 1, there was some work that had to be done. Building 3 and building 2. These are underground sewage pipes that are, again, building open in 55. But if you look at pictures of the dedication earlier that year, the Grand Street is already closed up. The pipes were laid in 52, 53, pipes are laid before the building is put over it. So those are approaching 70 years old. And we need to maintain. There's no way of knowing in advance that a pipe down below sewer is going to go bad. There's no magic camera that can go into a pipe. If you see how their men are doing the work on Grand Street, it's just drilling and drilling and drilling. unless you get to what happened further up near the Montessori and the Manhattan, the hip office, Dr. Soika's office. What you will see there is that last month there was a 20-foot or more sinkhole developed because a 1904 city sewer collapsed. They did the work very, very, very fast. A good repair, but that's what's happening. The water levels, we're near the river. It's salt water. The water levels are rising. Storms are getting worse, and it's helping to decay pipes that are old as it is. But we're going to step up always and do the work to keep our cooperators in heat and hot water protected without, and our pipes. But again, as someone who's, I won't say older, but about as old as the buildings, there comes a point where things start, your age cap catches up to you. And looking around that building, it's kind of hard to tell because we still try to maintain it to the utmost of our ability all around. We should mention the PPP. We fought hard working with the Coordinating Council of Cooperatives that I'm active in to apply to get co-ops included in the PPP program. And we were able to eventually get Congress to include it in the second round. We were not included in the first round. We had contact and had many letters back and forth with our Congresswoman, who was Nydia Velasquez, who was the chair of the Small Business Committee in the House, which had jurisdiction over this, and eventually not successful the first time, but many co-ops joining together were successful. We received as a loan $1,030,000. That's exactly what we were eligible for. We have now applied to turn that into a grant. They were slow in approving grants. They are starting to approve grants, which means it does not have to be repaid. We have applied for it to be a grant, and we hope that we would be successful, which would be $1 million that would not have to be repaid. In the last number of months, we've been able to reopen our fitness center. In terms of our finances, the closure of our fitness center for a year, basically a year, and even going back to last year, the revenue from the fitness center is about $185,000 a year, depending on how many members there are. And we lost that revenue last year at a necessity. Now that it's reopened, everyone should know that the air filtration system has been brought up to whatever the new standards are. Everything in there the air is being purified and cleaned, and it's a very, very safe environment. But that money is very important to our bottom line, and it's back in business, successfully back and safely back in business. In the near future, we will be looking very soon. I believe we will be reopening our playroom for the children. We've been talking about it for several months, but especially now that children are being vaccinated, children who are relatively safe, thankfully, from COVID itself, now that they are getting vaccines, it's even a more reason. We have many, many, many requests from parents, and whatever protocols need to be put in place, they will be put in place there. I think I have to mention, let's go to our flip tax. Obviously, when COVID hit, our flip tax sales ended 100%. They ended just as the spring arrived in March of 20. And usually that's a strong part of our season. Sales collapsed. We were way behind in flip tax. Last year, we saw a little bit of a rebound, but prices went down, and we still have a lower flip tax. What the board has done is the board has lowered the estimate on the flip tax. Flip tax is money that generates from people selling their apartments, but it's not money we can rely on. We don't know who is going to sell an apartment. We don't know who's ready for a job change or a lifestyle change. So we have to keep that number constant. There were years that number was $6.5 million. which was good for that year, no guarantee for the next. And we used that money to help offset expenses for our cooperators. But in recent years, the number has been 2.2, 2.4, somewhere in that range. And we need to keep that number low so that whatever comes in from that number is something that we can use for the benefit of cooperators, but not rely on our bottom line. Because again, we don't know. And the number of 20% sales, which are first sales, flip tax, obviously is decreasing over the years. And 5% flip tax just doesn't, brings in 25% of what a sale. Prices are were lower. Prices are still lower than pre-pandemic levels. We're seeing some increases in the prices here in East River, but it is a slow recovery. And to be honest, if a 20% sale happens and it's at a lower price, obviously co-op is receiving a little lower in flip tax. But we have seen a turnaround starting this year in terms of the flip tax revenue, the number of sales. So if we exceed our budget, obviously that's money that will be used for some of these other expenses, condensate lines and other items that are going on. As everyone knows, we have moved our office from 530 Grand Street, which was part of Hillman. We're now in 453 FDR Drive. Anyone who hasn't come down to the office, please come down. It's a beautiful office, but building the office costs money. That money will pay for itself because we will no longer be paying rent. Before Hillman disengaged from us, obviously we weren't paying rent to Hillman, and Hillman wasn't paying us for the maintenance office, for the supply room. It was a mutual relationship. Years ago, the office was part of Seward. And actually, for most of the years, the office was at 570 Grand Street, right now where the Montessori school is. So even there, Hillman wasn't paying. We were part of a family, and that's the way it worked. One of the areas of contention that made us move was that instead of giving us a grace period that we were told we would get, we was charged rent immediately from the day Hillman left, and at a very high unsustainable rent that for a basement space. That area is zoned for use. Before us, it was Catholic Charities was in there. It's zoned for the use is for a social service type agency. Unfortunately, very few social service agencies have extra money nowadays to be able to rent out. We were happy there, but we were being charged. We had our Lawless and Mangione, our architects, our engineers come and do a measurement, and the measurement that they did was a third less, well over 1,000 or more square feet less than what unfortunately Hillman was saying the space was. I think they were using the elevator shaft, their bike room, their laundry room, their compactor room included. As I had some very good discussions with the president of Hillman. We spoke for over a period of about 6 weeks, late summer, maybe early fall. This is now in court, and the judge will decide. I'm sure the judge will order that an independent person measure the space, and will come up with a fair price that we hope will help resolve the issue. But as it is now, we're in new space. We're right in our building, and we'll have no more renters. We do have litigation against Hillman Housing now. They owe us, if you look at our balance sheet, $786,000 that they have not paid us off of our bottom line. It's a very large money. We tried to work it out. Now I tried again to emphasize why go to court where lawyers make money. It's like a divorce. Let's work it out. We haven't been paid for money that they owe us. And now it's in the court. They'll answer, and hopefully down the road, it'll be resolved hopefully in a fair manner to everyone, and we could have a good relationship. Why is there a relationship? Because Hillman has a contract for about 10 more years to receive heat and hot water from us. That they don't want to break because it's very beneficial to them. They pay something like 25 or 26% of the boiler room costs, even though delivering heat hot water to their buildings going a much further distance than to us. But it's a relationship, and we honor the contract. Just so people understand, we provide heat and hot water to Hillman, and we provide it to Amalgamated Housing under contract. The hot water that we provide to Hillman, despite what some people might think, is only to deliver our boiler room. Our chief engineer, Jimmy Ritchie, and his crew, we deliver hot water to Hillman to their basement. Basically, it's a measurement in the slop sink. The slop sink is the sink you'd see in the laundry rooms. And to that laundry room, we deliver water at 120, 130 degrees, so that when the time it gets upstairs, it still has to maintain a certain level of heat. And heating up that water further so we could reach to the higher floors is something that Hillman has to do. We have nothing to do with other than delivering water, and our guys are always testing it. We live up to the letter of the contract, 100%. Another area that's in litigation is Hillman, and again, court will decide, Hillman not paying our management team for the work that they're doing on behalf of Hillman. When Hillman is using the boiler room staff is supervised by Shuli Wollman. Their payroll is supervised by Saul Wennick and prepared and Harry Packer. That takes time, nominal amount of time, perhaps the payroll, but they're not paying even their 26% of that period of time. When Shuli has to deal with Hillman, because they also had a condensate issue along Broome Street, when they have to come to him and he has to meet with their manager and their superintendent, it's Shuli's time. And they're not paying for Shuli's time. And when Shuli's working for Hillman, it means that some of that time could have been spent, maybe doing something at East River, and they are not covering that part of the cost of Shuli's time. Remember, when we have to do work when Jimmy has to do work on Broome Street for a line for Hillman, it's Shuli Wollman who is doing the bidding out and getting the company to come in and do the work. Obviously, now we ask for the money up front. We're not advancing money anymore, but it's our management's time, and they are just not being paid for their time, and that's an area of litigation that has been spelled out by our attorneys, and it's many areas like that, and that's why in some cases some of the numbers are also off. But look, and again, I say we really hope for a resolution, and many of us have friends in Hillman, many of us have family in Hillman. My 92-year-old mother moved into Hillman the day it opened in 1948, and she's still on the same block in the same apartment for 61 years. So have an interest in always keeping that family relationship, but perhaps it's distant relatives in some of these cases. We have, just so people know, we have 24 hours security. There are complexes in the area that have cut out shifts of security. Blocks are left unattended. We do not. We believe in keeping security every shift, 24 hours a day inside our buildings. Another area of expense is, of course, the biggest area of our expense, and that is our taxes, our water, and our sewer. Our taxes are about $10.5 million. They're actually a little higher, but Hillman, at this point, we have been billing them for their share of the real estate taxes on the boiler plant. Now that they're not part of the relationship, so actually that's part of the money that they owe us. Again, maybe to be negotiated or ruled on by the court, but that would be a couple of $100,000 a year. But if you take our taxes at about 10, let's just use a number of 10.5, and our water and sewer of 1.3, that's about 11.8. But if you add in the cost of our heat and hot water to produce it, we're up to about $14.5 million. Well over half of our budget just goes to that. Before we even begin to insurance, everyone knows insurance has been going up. We bid it out every time. Our insurance is $1.3 million. And again, that's before we pay for our staff. our security, our porters, our maintenance men, been with us for dozens of years, 30, 35 years. You know, a young guy on our crew could be here 15 years and they could be low person on the totem pole. And they're entitled to increases through their union contract, and they get those increases. So also, we know, as I said earlier, the cost of utilities is rising all around. We negotiate our electric rates, the delivery rate and other rates. We do negotiate them to get the lowest rate. And we generally go for always, I think, feeling is we go for a fixed, very low rate. We don't like to play games with variable rates because in a time like now, you could see, you know, people get burnt. We like to know what our number will be. Another area of expense, of course, is that COVID sanitizing supplies. That I think is something that's going to be with us, at least the sanitizing, for a long time to come, and some special cleaning equipment for our men. Again, we have a great staff who really stepped up, and we also want to make sure that when they go home, that they are safe when they go home to their family. Right now, we're negotiating or just finishing negotiations with local 30, which is our boiler room men, and whatever increase is negotiated. Excuse me. What we normally do here in East River is we do a Me Too clause. Whatever the RAB and the unions settle on, we say we're agreeing to. Of course, we're agreeing to it, but that means that we never have a lockout or a walkout, and our guys are always on the job and stuff. Next, and I'll ask Shirley to speak. As we all know, we see the scaffolding going on, our local or 11, the building facade work. We're getting ready to finish soon one side and move to the other side. Big job, but Shirley, if you can talk a little about that, please.
Good evening, everybody. I would like to, reference to the local law 11. It's a very big eyesore in the complex. It's such a beautiful property. The grass is beautiful, and you have scaffolding all over the place. We started on building 3 and 4 because building 4 was a problem area. The bulkheads were a little bit damaged, and we were concerned for the safety. So we started on the 3 and 4 side. Building 3 is pretty much completed. We're hoping that the bridge work is going to be removed by the end, by the end of December, and we'll be moving it across the street to building 2. Building 1 has already been set up to start working over there. Building 4 is the next building that would be completed. They're still working over there. We're hoping by mid-January to the end of January. Again, everything I say is weather permitting, because now we're getting into the weather where we might be able to work for 2 days and not work for 2 days. But we're hoping by the end of January that building 4, the scaffolding is taken off, and we're going to be starting full force next. Hope to work through the winter. I'd love to hear that it's going to be a nice warm winter, and get this done as soon as possible. The anticipated completion date, based again on weather, is July, August of 22. As Gary mentioned earlier, we had some, major work that was in back of the buildings, building 3 in the back hallway. And as Gary mentioned, there's really no scientific way of seeing if a pipe underground is corroded or not. Well, the only way one could see that a sewage pipe is broken, corroded, is by smell. And bottom line, people in the building started smelling a foul odor, and we started probing into the ground, and we ended up having, not only in building 3, the entrance of building 1, right at the entranceway from the gym out to the side area of Grand Street and behind Building 2 near the East River Child Development Center. These were pipes that were broken and have been replaced. And naturally, you have to find good pipe before you attach a good pipe to the location. And we've accomplished that. But again, it's many feet of pipe on the ground, and we never know when it's going to go until it goes. And then we have the smell. But again, as the board and working with the East River Board, they 100% want safe, proper work and A+ work. And the biggest job that we're doing now is, as everybody sees, across Grand Street. It's a $990,000 job, $1 million job. And this was something that was brought to the board in about a month and a half ago. And it was very concerning because we were heading into the winter season till we got the city to come down. And of course, the city didn't come down. We ended up having to open the area to see what's going on underground. And unfortunately, it was East River Housing problem. It was the condensate line, which ran across Grand Street from the park between buildings 1 and 2 to the opposite the guard booth by 3 and 4. And again, safety is number one, and heat and hot water is, I guess, number one and number two. So we had to get this job done. It was bid out to 3 contractors, and IPS Construction, who's done work for East River Housing for the last 20 odd years, won the bid, knows the job, able to pull permits with the city of New York. Again, you're pulling permits across Grand Street, main thoroughfare off the FDR Drive. So you're going to hope to see, and Gary, I think, said next week we're going to have a shutdown of hot water. It's actually Wednesday. This Wednesday is the shutdown by Building 1 of hot water. And we really want to get the area cleaned up, fixed up by the end of the year. And that's our priority, and that's our job, to get everything back the way East River Housing knows it to be, minus the local law 11 bridge work around the complex. Again, on behalf of the management team, I'd like to wish everybody, again, we finished Hanukkah, Christmas is coming, as Gary said, and want to wish everybody a happy Christmas, a Merry Christmas, and a happy and a healthy New Year to everybody and your families and the East River Housing entire family, extended, and God bless you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Shirley. I do want to mention, because there has been a question from a cooperator having to do with the scaffolding. Why is it being moved across the street if we think in the wintertime there may not be work? Well, we hope to do some work in the wintertime, weather permitting, but it isn't a question of removing the scaffolding and then saying put it back up in 3 months. If anyone follows the cost of lumber, last year it's come down quite a bit, but the cost of lumber went up 500% last year. So for them to take away the scaffolding and then we have to repurchase lumber, and we have special lighting that we put up under the scaffolding. We even have some security cameras because we don't want cooperators to be unprotected as they're walking under the scaffolding. If something should happen in the neighborhood, those cameras now can be moved across the street. So we need to move everything across now and be ready to go whenever we can do the work. One thing I want to mention about the sewer pipes, that we have been told by the plumbers also, and IPS is one of the biggest plumbers in the city, that some of besides age and salt water level, is that people flush down in their toilet chemicals that they should not be flushing. And if you add up the cumulative effect over years, in other words, there are people flushing down cat litter. Cat litter, if you have a cat, cannot go down the toilet. It has to go into the compactor. But cat litter itself, especially There's environmentally safe cat litter. There's other cat litter has certain chemicals in it to nullify the odors, and that's hurting. And other people take chemicals that they might be using in their house to clean, and if it goes down the toilet, it is a factor, we are told, in what's happening. However minor, we want to we just want to alert people to that. We just want to remind people that this Thursday, 2 days from now, in conjunction with Henry Street Settlement, we will be doing COVID testing in Building 4. Earlier this year, we did have several days of vaccinations given out to many cooperators and to our staff, and even to some of the home health aides who come into our building every day. It was a great event. Now the COVID testing will be done this Thursday. And again, thank you to Henry Street Settlement. The notices went out. You do have to call to pre-register, although they might take people if time permits. As always, we fund our NORC. In fact, we fund our NORC at twice the level of a sister co-op based on our size. So they're half our size. We fund them over 5 times the amount, or 4.5 times the amount that they do. We believe in our NORC. The services they do for our seniors are incredible, and the lives they save is just incredible. And we're proud to have been one of the first NORCs in the city, in a thing that is spread throughout the city, throughout our state, throughout our country. We'll just quickly, a few more things, and I want to turn it over, but our parks, we try to maintain our parks, especially during this COVID time, are just a beautiful place for emotional, uplifting, it's stress-free, it's a safe haven for our families and our friends, people who get together, and we are very lucky to have 2 large parks between our buildings, especially now as East River Park apparently seems to be starting into their into the resiliency project. In terms of increases, I think it's important for us to say the board doesn't look on any increase lightly. It's a fiduciary responsibility. We each pay it. It hurts. I have children here. It hurts when you're helping some of your children, but it's our responsibility to give those increases. There are times in the past where maybe we didn't give it annually. We thought we can go a little longer. Things are going well. Well, we're learning. You pay the price if you don't do something annually, where you probably can give smaller increases. When COVID hit, we were about to give a standard increase, but COVID hit, and we just felt we couldn't do it. We were probably a month behind, and that 5-6 months before we gave it, I think it was 5 months till August, really put us in the hole. So I think the board as a whole has come to realization that we have to do, we did the last one May 1st, we have to be looking at yearly increases as low as possible, so we don't shock anybody with anything major. But it would be unfair not to be up front of that. And that brings us to a question. I told you with a mortgage, the bank wants us to leave aside $575,000, but we get questions about, do we have a reserve fund? We don't have a reserve fund per se. When we need to fund something, we fund it. Why has the feeling been always not to have a reserve fund on the side? Is because a reserve fund comes from you, the cooperators. It can only come from money we raise. So if today we wanted to raise your carrying charge, let's say we had a 4% increase and we wanted to raise an extra percent for a reserve fund, that would only bring in $228,000 a year. So to have a reserve fund of, let's say, $1 million would be a 4% increase. A 4% increase would be an increase on the cooperators today, before any future increase, of approximately $55 a month, which is what, $650, $660 extra a year. Now I'm talking about an average 2-bedroom apartment. I'm not getting into ones or the threes. So this is something that when you have an increase of even the larger increases were necessary to do, with the tax increases and stuff, it is something that would really hurt the cooperators. Those cooperators who are not here, when they leave, that money would be moved along. But if you took that 4% increase and we now use the money as we should have for the compensate line, that money would be gone. So there'd be another 4% increase, again, just to raise $1 million. So we're very cognizant of it. We're always thinking about it. We just feel that it's an extra burden on our cooperators when we try to fund, and we haven't used the assessment route really ever, which might be in the future, but we just want to be fair to the cooperators that's why the issue of the reserve fund can only come from your pocket. We can't raise our commercials anymore. They're on leases. In fact, as reported last year, we had to give the supermarket a reduction in rent. We gave a similar reduction in rent to what Seward gave to their fine fair, now called Metro Acres, but Seward forgave their taxes. We did not. They still owe us the real estate taxes. So we did not go give them that, but they would have gone out of business. And when we reduced them, we were able to then get back money that they owed us. The Trader Joe's has definitely hurt the local supermarkets in our area. So we, so our commercials, they have leases. We can negotiate whatever we can negotiate. Luckily, we have pretty fair, good prices on our commercials. So the only place money can come from, to be honest, for any expense is from us. It's not like we can raise the price of a hamburger. It comes from each of us as cooperators, and we need to be cognizant of that. We have people from all economic levels, all age groups, and all, everyone has their issues. Last two things, for turnover, trusts. We approved trusts a couple of years ago. I think almost virtually every meeting we're approving one, in some cases two trusts, for the vast majority of meetings. So that is an option for people in terms of some sort of planning, whether it's estate planning or planning. But of course, before anyone enters into that, you should be consulting with your attorney and your tax advisor, whether that's an option for you to do. They are reviewed by our attorneys at Norris and McLaughlin to make sure they meet the proper standards and the guidelines. The last item for right now is, and it comes up with a lot of the questions, and that's, we get questions about composting. Would we have composting in our buildings? And the answer is, for this board, the answer is no, we won't do it. Our city is infested with rats. Lower East Side is one of the 3 worst rat areas in the city. Washington Heights, Lower East Side, and one area in Brooklyn. We have been told in the last few days that in a building a block or so away, so a co-op right nearby, the rats are eating through the concrete. They have composting in their building. The garbage is kept in the building until it's allowed to go out the night before. There is a real infestation, and we do not have basements. When it's required by law, we will always comply with the law, but we cannot attract more vermin into our buildings. There's no clean way. People can compost, people can bring it other places, but in our buildings, whether it's a smell or whether it's a safety issue, it's just not something that this board, for the safety of people, you can walk the streets and see dead rats, you can see rats, you can see mice. It's inevitable in our city. They're animals, they look for food. What's going on nearby is terrible. When Baruch Housing did some of their post-Sandy work that's still going on, they dug up many burrows, as anyone who digs down in New York, construction digs up burrows. So we are not there. I can say that at a community board meeting in November or October, a member of the community board who lived in Hillman brought up to the Parks Department, it was recorded, anyone could have been watching, why are there rats in the new beautiful Sheriff Street Park? And Sheriff Street Park, which was closed for a year, and they did a beautiful job. I mean, it's so many families in Sheriff Street Park, which is a name that anyone who's lived here well, it will always be that name. And they said, why are there rats in the park? I haven't seen, I've been in the park many times. And the person from the Parks Department got in line and answered and said, because your co-op is leaving their garbage on the street at night before pickup, and you're doing composting along Broom Street right against the park. And that is why we're infested with rats that are a danger to, possibly to the children. So, it's a good environmental issue. It is not safely for us right now. We hope one day it could be, and people are welcome to do it and bring it wherever they want. At this point, I would like to turn over the mic and the floor to Jeff Super, who is the longtime chair of our House Committee, and he will give a report on the House Committee now and in the past year. Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you, Gary. Good evening, everybody. The House Committee was, and as we all have been affected by the pandemic, it has forced us to think about our strategies. And, nothing terrible, but it, of course, caused us not to be able to do some of the things that we have done in the past and would like to continue. So hopefully the new year ahead will open up those gates. For our newer members, and a reminder to longstanding members, the House Committee is a longstanding ER tradition, which started apparently when originally some of our board members were not residents of the co-op, and the idea was to have a House Committee that would get people involved. The House Committee members, 11, are elected by their neighbors, and their primary mission, our primary mission, is to focus on quality of life matters. We serve in a strictly advisory capacity to our board and management, and we try to represent the views and concerns of our fellow cooperators. So we really depend on the input from you. And I'll talk about that a little later. I would like to, of course, acknowledge and thank the committee members for their active participation and advice and service to our community. Sahela Abdu Ali, Christine Alafaris, Carmen Alvello, Anthony Brownie, who is our secretary, which means the wonderful job of taking the minutes, Leo Honig, Ted Pender, Jacqueline Fatula, Timothy Rucker, Tom Skibicki, who is our vice chair, and Christine Vasquez. They've all pitched in this year to do what we can. I also want to acknowledge Larry Goldman, one of our board members, serves as a board liaison and attends our meetings and tries to keep us informed and help us to work in a collaborative manner as possible. In addition to our monthly meetings, which of course have all been on Zoom this year, and we do miss that contact. Hopefully that'll begin to open up sooner than later. Members also attend various community meetings, such as the 7th Precinct Community Council and Community Board 3. Members also actively participate in at least one of 3 subcommittees by which we organize our activities. These 3 committees are corporate communications, community initiatives, and our buildings and grounds committee. And I just want to briefly talk about those committees and what they're working on. Cooperator communications, not corporate, cooperator communications. This one is headed by Anthony Brownie. It has been a difficult year because this committee usually direct some of the social activities, the lobby socials, the meet your neighbor nights, and the annual ice cream social that we normally have held in the garden just as the public school year ends. Hopefully it will be safe enough and prudent to resume these kinds of activities in the near future. The committee is also committed to increasing the frequency of the East River newsletter. This is an important document to let people what's going on in the broader neighborhood as well as our beautiful co-op. So we are committed to increasing the frequency of that for next year. The Community Initiatives Group is headed by Christine Vasquez, who has done an energetic job of policing the neighborhood and bringing things to our attention. She and Carmen Alvelo regularly attend the 7th Precinct Community Council meetings and share their observations with the members. They have been reporting over the course of the year that there have been increases in various categories of crime. I know that the police department works closely with the management office to keep us advised, and it's a good mutual relationship. One of the major community initiatives many of us have been following, and Gary talked about it briefly, is of course the East Side Coastal Resiliency Project, known as the ESCR. Finally, this year, the work has begun, mostly in the area above 20th Street, but actually as of today, in our area. So I just wanted to let people know, and it's the kind of thing that should be in a newsletter and so forth, and we'll try to do that sooner than later. The Corlears Hook Bridge is now only open so one can get to the ferry. You cannot go over the bridge and get into the park. I was out there this morning, and unfortunately, the transition wasn't wonderful, and several people sort of got trapped, and we had to help them get out. The Delancey Street Bridge is also closed, but you can access the park and by using the Houston Street Bridge. So for those who have been able to enjoy walks in the park and other activities, you can get into the park through Houston Street, and the park from Houston Street up until the Con Ed area and the Pinch Point is still going to be open for a while. If you're interested in following this thing, you can probably get information. They do weekly reports just by going into ESCR, and the information should come up. This committee also focuses on local transportation issues, busing, traffic, under the able guidance of Leo Honig, who was the former longtime chair of the House Committee. As an example of the kind of thing, he had been advocating for a safer pedestrian crossing at the corner of where Grand Street and Madison Street come together, that triangle. So it's good to see that something has finally been done. Our third committee, probably the most robust area, is our Buildings and Grounds Committee, which includes safety and security. This committee has been ably headed by Tom Skibicki, our vice chair. During the year, Tom started to explore the possibility of improving the tree pits that surround East River, all the East River properties. He mapped out the pits, researched potential improvements, how one could obtain better looking fencing, tree guards, reached out to our local elected officials, as well as the park departments. So this is something that's in process, and we will proceed to pursue this to see if a cost-effective opportunity is possible, because we think it would be a nice improvement. Excuse me. We have not done as many of our group walkthroughs to look at our property and see if we can recommend improvements or note things that might need attention. We did do one earlier in the year when COVID sort of looked like it was calming down, but rather we've been relying on members to just speak out, see what you say what you see. And Tom has been very diligent on this, doing the observations on his own. And also, we've been getting emails from cooperators, which help focus our efforts. Some of the observations and questions that have been raised during the year have concluded the appearance of our lobbies, the condition of the plants in the lobbies, the parking lots, door access, and security. Our main contact in addressing these matters has been Elliot Kaplan, our Assistant General Manager, and I want to thank him. We wish to thank him for working with us to deal with our inquiries and suggestions. We will continue to be professionally persistent. Hopefully, some people might call this being, a little annoying, but you've got to follow up, and we'll do that. And we do thank Elliot as he addresses these matters and gets them corrected wherever it's practicable. In the area of security, we were very concerned about our observations and comments from shareholders about unmanned security stations and the potential risks that this may present. To address this, after speaking with Elliot, we finally were able to arrange with Elliot's assistance a meeting with David Milewski. David is the Director of Security at East River, as listed in our website. He is the Vice President of the New York area office of Admiral Security Services, a very large national securities firm, and is very familiar with our co-op. We held a meeting with David and Elliot, a Zoom meeting which Elliot arranged, which included one of our members. We're very fortunate to have on our committee Carmen Alvello, who is a former NYPD detective, and I attended that meeting as well. We discussed our observations and concerns and had questions about security protocols. We were told that since the Hillman split, that the contracted security provider is not providing a supervisor, and this apparently explains why the booths are unintended. And it isn't just 10-minute kinds of things. We've had reports of booths being unintended for up to an hour. David and Elliot indicated they were reviewing this and would have further comments early next year. We will continue to follow up on this because, as Gary said, nothing is more important than safety and security in our co-op. And fortunately, while we're not aware of any incidents, there have things that have happened that illustrate the risks. It's very important in our role that we get input from our cooperators. The easiest way to contact us is through our email address, erhousecommittee@aol.com. There is also a link that Elliot set up for us on the ER website, and hopefully you will use that if you have any questions or things you see that we might be able to follow up on. Any inquiries, suggestions, etc., are always discussed at our next meeting and responded to. In conclusion, I want to also echo what Gary and Julie have said, that I wish everybody, all our cooperators, their families, and their loved ones a very happy, peaceful, and especially healthy new year. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. I just want to point out that the Secretary of the Board of Directors, Dov Goldman, does sit on the CAG, which I think is called the Community Advisory Group, overseeing and community input on the resiliency project. So thank you for that. Dov attends every meeting and reports back. And Larry Goldman, when he attends the House Committee meeting, is always reporting back on the actions of the House Committee to keep us informed. So I thank you both for that. Before we get to the limited number of questions that we received, I do want to call on Dov Goldman, our secretary, who's the chair of our election committee, to please just name the candidates for the board and the House committee this year, as we always do.
Thank you, Gary. This year, there are 4 seats available for the board of directors. There are 5 current candidates. We have Ruvain Bell, Ellen Gentaviso, Richard Kenny, Matthews Jets, and John Sotomayor. We also have 2 seats available for the House committee, and we have 2 candidates, which is Leo Honig and Thomas Gavicki. Thank you, and a happy and healthy New Year's to everyone.
Thank you. And I should say, Leo, running again for the House committee, Leo is an institution, was the chair of the House committee for many years, and is just a great asset, especially when it comes to transportation issues. He had direct contact and direct lines with our borough commissioner on transportation for so many years, and I think still does. Next, just want to call on our corporate attorney, Michael Riley, to just explain the normal procedure that takes place for our counting of the ballots, which will take place tomorrow. Michael.
Sure. Good evening, everyone. This is Mike Riley from Norris McLaughlin. It's a pleasure to see everyone again virtually. It's our 2nd year doing this, and this year we've continued to streamline the voting process. I'm happy to report that a quorum has in fact been achieved. So we will proceed tomorrow at 9:30 to commence the voting process. My coworker Pamela Muschler, who many of you know from closings, her and I will conduct the voting. We will do it in our office at Times Square. I will also share, or have shared rather, with the candidates a Zoom link if you care to observe us through the multi-hour counting process. We will proceed to process the ballots, provide a tally, certify the results, and we will email the election committee the final results. So again, this year, we had some practice last year getting it right, doing it virtually. And as much as we miss being in the rooms downtown, we're handling it uptown today, or tomorrow rather, and we'll report the results, certify them, and it's a great happiness that quorum was reached. It's a lot of effort to get people to come out and go to the mailbox and process proxies, and your management team did a great job of getting the vote out, as did the board and the election committee. So I want to thank everyone for their efforts, so we can conclude hopefully tomorrow morning sometime the election, certify it, and keep moving forward.
Thank you, Michael. And I think just so we point out that because there are actually 3 vacancies on the House committee, but 2 people only ran. So as was happened last year, those 2 people will be elected by acclamation, so
Right.
that we could save the fee of paying you to count those votes when they're both elected.
Right. we'll save the obvious. So we do thank you, and we'll move forward along with our voting process. And I think I'd sent the Zoom link out earlier. For those if you want to observe our Times Square conference room, please do so. Thank you.
Which is open to the candidates and the chair of the election committee. So thank you, Michael, for that, and thank everyone who participated in our democratic process by sending in their private ballot to the attorneys. I'm now going to go to the questions. I'm not going to give names of who asked the questions, but we'll generally read the question or summarize. We have a question regarding the laundry rooms using clear doors, glass doors similar to the management office, so that in the summertime when the air conditioning is on, we can close the door and perhaps not be air conditioning out into the back hallway, although that's a very hot area also. Discuss this, we've actually discussed this in the past, and as Julie and I spoke over the last, yesterday and the weekend and today on it. The issue there is, right now, our doors in each laundry room are basically propped open, because when we used to close the door, glass or not, even the solid door, to keep the air in, we heard from quite a few cooperators that they felt uncomfortable in a closed room doing their laundry. There are people who do their laundry 24 hours a day. We don't close our rooms, as you know, some cases do. So people felt, and even though we have cameras and the guard is watching many cameras, there are areas of the laundry room, that glass door goes straight ahead. It almost goes to the bulletin board. There are areas of the laundry room that are not visible. And we have heard, we'll keep looking into it, I mean, obviously, but we have heard that people just feel a little uncomfortable being down there alone with the door closed, whether it's see-through or not. Because remember, to have even a glass door that's fire code and fireproof would be a thicker door. So, you know, the extra cost of the AC, it does cost something, but we feel it's nominal to keep cooperators feeling safe when they go into their room at any day. Because there are times when we all know the room is empty. Of course, sometimes you're not that happy when you go down and the room is packed, you know, and your machines are not available. But we will do that. Another question came in about package theft that seems to be plaguing the neighborhood. I think it's probably plaguing all over the city. Package theft. And the person said that he had to go to maintenance office several times to see if they can get their package. Well, the maintenance office, obviously, if you're during the daytime, they will hold your package gladly. If it's in the evening, we do have a maintenance man on the job till midnight, but if he has been called to a call, he will be out of the office. We no longer have a dispatcher. We have an answering service that calls directly to the maintenance man on the company cell phone that only can be used for that. It's a great system. It saved us quite a bit of money, but we encourage people to use a maintenance office if you want to send your package to. And in discussing this question with Shuli today, we are going to be looking at seeing if the porter in building 3 would be able, perhaps up to 9 o'clock, not till midnight. There are certain duties he has, but when he's around, to be able to go into the maintenance office and retrieve someone's package. So the porter in building 3, who's usually doing lobby work, he's not doing upper floor work, he's doing lobby work or compactor room work, should be able to receive your packages. There was a question weeks ago about package rooms in each building. We don't have the rooms and we don't know how those would be accessible to people, who's going to go in and who's going to retrieve. The maintenance office is a place, but to be very blunt, when people have had packages taken, and we go on cameras. We have cameras, remember, in the elevators. There are cameras in some cases in certain staircases or floors that have had issues in the past. Sadly, in too many times, and this hasn't happened that many times, the person who we see taking the package has been a neighbor. Your own neighbors. At one point, there were some kids going through the building and taking packages. We did catch a pizza delivery person. It was turned over, you know, to the appropriate authorities, taking a package. But sadly, there are neighbors, and there are missed deliveries because there are so many incredible amount of deliveries. Amazon 3-4 times a day, UPS, FedEx, and others. There are missed deliveries, and there are neighbors who receive packages that we've been able to track back and see a neighbor's name on it, or even the same apartment in another building, and do not take the time that some of us do to walk that package over, at least to, you know, put it outside the other door. So we're aware of it. We look at, we have cameras by the mailbox areas to kind of monitor when we've heard that some things happen there. So we're hoping that things are improved, but please avail yourself of the maintenance office package room, which surely we'll be looking into, seeing if people can access those packages up until 8, 9 o'clock in the evening, which will be, you know, after work hours.
And
sure.
again, like Gary said, the way packages get delivered to the maintenance department is in the cooperator's name, East River Maintenance Department, 568, 570 Grand Street, UPS, FedEx, Amazon knows to deliver it there. At current, as of today, there are no packages even in the maintenance department. So people are not utilizing this service. It's a great service. It's a secure service. And once we get the package, we notify the cooperator that we have a package and it can stay there and pick it up as needed, when needed.
Thank you, Shirley. Another question has to do with sustainability, with our planet and our environment in mind. Can we generate our energy in cleaner, more sustainable ways? I mean, we're happy to report that when we switched to all natural gas 5, 6, 7 years ago, not only has it been a huge savings, although natural gas, like everything else, is starting to go up. It was so much incredibly lower than oil, but that is the cleanest gas that can be used in our plant. The only time that we burn oil is when Con Edison orders us to burn oil. If it comes a cold spell, Con Edison has the right to demand that we switch over to oil. We have to keep our tanks full, so we have oil. We know is how expensive it is, but the oil that we do burn in when we have to is no longer the number 6 oil of the years past, polluting. It's the cleaner, whatever that, clean, number two heating oil. We prefer to always stay on gas, but when Con Edison does it, and they'll do it even maybe a month ago as a trial, everyone has to switch over for 3 hours. Well, that switchover takes time, shutting down the system, transferring over. So we do that. In terms of our lighting, we use special low watt fluorescent bulbs. If we switch to LEDs, which wouldn't be much lower wattage from what we have, every single light fixture in the co-op would have to be retrofitted at a very, very large expense for an energy saving at this point that we've been told by people we brought in would be nominal compared to the retrofitting cost of that. But we, again, we're always looking for cost savings, and if that became, or if there were different programs, we would be looking into it. We had several questions about our landscaping company and the use of gas blowers that they use, and could they use either rakes or electric blowers? Well, electric blowers are just as noisy as gas blowers. I know I use electric upstate. If electric is on an extension cord, even if it's the longest 100 foot, we don't have the outlets around our facilities to do that. And going through the bushes, we have, some of our parking lots filled with leaves, and between buildings 1 and 2 are what, 700 feet long or something. Battery packs could be used, but the batteries don't last long, and we would have to have an incredible amount. They would have to have an incredible amount. We met with Windy Farm a week ago, Shirley and I, to speak about them. And yes, it could be done. Yes, co-ops are doing it, but the cost would be double or triple to us for the extra men that they would need, because there isn't enough power in an electric blower that they use that a gas blower has. And remember that once it rains, when the leaves come down, those leaves get very heavy also. So we're always looking for better ways to do it. In terms of, could we use rakes? We do use rakes wherever possible. In fact, the actual bagging of the leaves is only done by rakes. I was watching the men do it this past Friday morning. They estimate that and those are big 32-gallon bags, special leaf bags, that they fill a minimum of 300 bags of leaves, which are done by hand with the rake and a shovel, putting it in. But we have a huge amount of leaves and trees, and our trees are mature and have many leaves. Maybe the rain tonight will help, but if you looked at the trees right now in the park, right near the parking lot between buildings 3 and 4, but closer to the J section, you will see that as of last Friday, some of those trees still had a good 30, 40, or 50% of their leaves still up in December. You need one good storm and it'll knock it down. We bring Windy Farms in basically weekly, because we don't like the leaves on the ground, because the fact is leaves on the sidewalk become when they're wet, they become slippery. They're almost like an ice situation sometimes. So for the safety of our cooperators, we're doing that. So we're always looking, but when we use the rakes, we can. But they're saying the only way they can do it is the gas. unless we're willing to pay them for many more days of, and we're looking to cut costs and not increase. A question came in about plans to provide electric charging stations for co-operators who will be buying electric vehicles in the years to come. In the years to come, when people are required to buy electric vehicles, we will surely follow whatever mandates there are for electric charging stations. About a year and a half ago, we were asked for a co-operator if we would be willing to move another co-operator. He didn't have a parking spot, but we should move someone else so he could be near one of the old guard booths outside the east section, and he would pay for the electric to put a charging station for his car that he wanted to buy. And of course, when the electric cost came in to run this line, you have to drill and cut. It was way too high. I don't think the person necessarily was interested. But again, a charging station for one co-operator does not help the many who might in the future be required to get that. And every charging vehicle, I have a friend who just bought a full electric vehicle, a GM vehicle. And if he takes it to the dealer, there's only one charging station. It takes 2 hours because they have a very powerful system. But if he gets there and someone else is charging their car, he has to wait the hour, 2 hours until the person is finished. So other charging cars can take 12 hours on a smaller trickle system. We have looked at a company that would bring charging stations into almost every spot. Astronomical, it can't be done. When it happens, but we don't encourage whether people have cars, and people can have Priuses, which are dual fuel when it's required. But the cost is just so great. And the other issue that we know we've heard face in a few areas that do have these states, if you hook up your car to the station and it's going to take 5 hours, 7 hours, and maybe I'm going to go when you're done, if it's free, who's going to get you to remove your vehicle and not leave it? It's almost like the laundry room, where people like to leave their clothes in the dryer or the washer for many, many, many hours and don't come down. And then I'm mad when you pull out there because there are no more machines. It's the same thing with the charging station to be monitored. I think we're going to get to that point in the city where it's going to be, the city's talking about not even allowing gas vehicles after 2035. I don't know what's going to be. So again, we will follow. But even if we had 5 charging stations, if that was ever possible, who would pay for that electric for you to charge your car would be an issue. We have no way of doing that. And second of all, that would probably be 5 people who would lose a parking spot, who now have a parking spot, unless we had areas. So something to be looked at, but it is, that is the question. There's another question, kind of a strange kind of question, because it's someone who's looking for more parking. I really don't know if the person's on the list a short or long time, but I know they sent the question in late for the candidates tonight, and it wasn't geared towards the candidates, but it came in a day or so late. And this person is saying that our parks are only used 6 months of the year. They're not used the rest of the year. So why don't we take some of our parks and make parking spaces out of them? Well, as I said earlier, our parks are a haven in this busy and hectic city. They're beautiful. We are not taking, and if you take the areas by our parking lot, the only area closest are our children's playground, the little ball fields we have. So we are not taking space. The parks are used all year round, obviously more, but for someone to have a parking spot, and we don't encourage people to have cars or not, that's their business. We are not taking away an amenity. The city can't change parkland into something else without state law. So we are not. The person then says he doesn't understand, but he writes, I understand Hillman residents get a significant discount at the parking garage on Delancey Street and Columbia. What the writer doesn't understand is that Hillman owns that garage. So they have a contract with a vendor who gives them less money because they are giving a discount to the co-operators, but they own the garage. There was no negotiated discount. They own the property. Person asked whether we can negotiate with nearby garages other than that garage. There are no nearby garages to us. The ones, they're all the way up Henry Street, Allen Street, and that's for anyone to negotiate themselves. But at one point, the Hillman Garage was offering discounts to other East River residents. They stopped that many years ago. And to be honest, in speaking with the vendor there, the vendor is looking, and Hillman Board might be considering doing away with some of those discounts, because the fewer discounts that are given even to their cooperators, the more money will be obtained by the vendor, who will then offer more back to the cooperators. So we are not taking parkland, as this person says, because there are people who have to have the extreme inconvenience of finding street parking every day. It's, you go on our list, it'll come. We've looked at other issues. People should know that the city only allows a certain number of spots in our lot. You're not allowed to exceed that number, and lifts are not going to work. If you saw the sinkhole on Grand Street, lifts are just not going to work. And our last question has to do with the mask mandate in the building. The mask mandate in the building is something that the board reviews practically every meeting or every other meeting. We now, the current board, and it's not always unanimous, these decisions, they're tough decisions, are that people who are vaccinated, and I urge everybody, I hope everyone is vaccinated, boosted, or whatever they can do, is we encourage masks in the building. I wear a mask always within the building, but that for people who are vaccinated, it is still optional. We'll obviously track this new variant, which tonight the government is saying may not be as bad as even the Delta variant was. Let's hope that it's a little too early to tell. But one thing you should know, and I know that we have issues, and we do, Shuli's in contact many times with UPS, the post office, and other places. All people coming into our buildings who are vendors, who are delivery people, vaccinated or not, are coming onto our property, and they are required to wear a mask at all times. And we have cooperators and we have board members who sometimes and cooperators speak up and tell them they have to they have to cover up. And in fact, that's our position, and other things we will again keep monitoring as time goes by. And that's it for the questions. I just want to thank everyone who has joined us tonight for our annual meeting. Hopefully in the future we can get back together at a location, but we'll see what the world has in store with us. But most important, everyone, please be safe, please be healthy, please be respectful of all of our neighbors and our cooperators. We are a co-op. We're a beautiful co-op. It's just a wonderful place to live, and we want to keep it that way. And we welcome everyone into our co-op. And please, let's take pride always in our co-op and do all we can to build it up always, even to higher standards. And that's our pledge on the board, that we will always try to maintain the higher standards. And I know it's our management's goal also to keep this co-op as beautiful as it is. If you will look at a picture, last thing, from October 55, when they had the dedication of the building, and you could see the building behind us, the cars are very different in the street, and you don't see the air conditioners yet in the buildings, and many people didn't have air conditioners till even much later. But you will see that our buildings look from the outside just as beautiful as they did 66 years ago. And that's our goal, to maintain it. So I want to thank everybody. Everyone be well. Again, happy holidays, happy New Year, and the best to everyone. And let's hope for a much, much healthier and better year for everyone and for our families. Amen. Thank you. Good night.